We can do it. We can do it. As long as the viewer's experience is fine, then we will survive.
And there's ways to like filter
So
out.
do you want me to fix the blip, Vicki, or do you want to start the show?
Well, what do you think?
I'll do whatever you want,
Well,
because I know you're under a time constraint.
right, because we will have people coming in for the second show. I think we could go ahead. If you're sure that the sound that's coming out is not like what we're hearing,
Yeah, I am
Yeah.
sure.
okay, then we can just go ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. All right,
We're not like
so...
move like this when we're done.
It is. It's
And
You're
you,
conditioned.
and do you want comments as usual to appear on the screen?
sure.
Okay.
Sure.
All right, in that case, you ready to go on the air?
You're all ready?
I'm ready.
Yep, we're ready.
Okay, there's the silver button that turns the light on. The light is on. Yes?
Yes.
Put the clapper in front of your face. When you hit the clapper, you're on the air.
Welcome to Talking Peace with the Western New York Peace Center, being recorded here at Think Twice Radio in the home of the future, thanks to our friend and producer, Richard Wicca. Thanks, Richard. And we thank our friends at WBNY, Buffalo's original alternative radio station, where we are also airing this Talking Peace. So thank you, WBNY and Buff State. And, of course, all the thanking of people reminds me that we are on stolen Haudenosaunee land, and we are very thankful for the indigenous wisdom and leadership that they're showing us about taking care of people on the planet. And it's also, they are very much the ones who start off with thankfulness and thanking the people that made things possible, thanking Mother Earth and all the creatures, the flying and swimming and four-legged creatures, and thanking all the different plants, the medicinal and food plants, and the trees that give us the air we breathe, and all the different elements that make this beautiful creation, and that we should continue to live as originally instructed so that life can continue in this creation. So, and most of all, of course, the Creator, and that original Creator. So we're grateful here, and we're also grateful for our wonderful guests that have come in for a very special show. So we've been talking about youth needs quite a bit. And so it is Ramadan. It's soon going to be Eid al-Fitr. And so we thought it would be wonderful, and I'm very excited. We have some of our Muslim young friends here who are going to share some thoughts with us. So I guess I'll just go round as we see people on the screen. So I would say first, Juman Aref. Juman, who was on the Muslim Public Affairs Council and is a young activist, very enthusiastic always. Hi, Juman. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for having me, and I'm just so grateful to be back in a room with three of the people who've inspired me the most all these years after a long time and in good health. So I'm very happy.
We're so glad to have you here. And then we have Amirah Muflahi, friend of the show. It's been a little while. I know you're so busy already. And I want to say Amirah is actually on the city council now of Lackawanna City Council person. So thank you for squeezing us into your busy schedule.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, we love to have you on the show. And last but not least, we have Akram Shibly. Akram has, I think, I don't know if it was, I guess I'd met you before that, or I wouldn't have thought to ask you, but I've been listening to Akram explaining about Islam ever since he has done it numerous times for Camp Peace Prince over and over again. So thank you for coming, Akram.
Thank you, Vicki. And I feel like I've known you since I was a kid, honestly.
Well,
I've seen you everywhere.
Yeah.
You've always been a wonderful ally and supporter, and you've always been showing up, so thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. So anyway, so we have lots to talk about today, and you know, as usual, we like to start out with just thinking of our values. So it sort of helps us, guides us. I mean, I think it's part and parcel of the work we do, trying to make the world a better place, trying to live as originally instructed, if we want to say that. So if we'll just hold up a value or two that we think of, that we like to hold up in the conversation, and also especially in the topic that we're talking about for youth needs. So Juman, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I guess something that is very close to my heart is just the aspect of giving people a voice. And a lot of the times we're just in our heads. I'm very passionate about psychology, and it's really hard for some of these kids who are just stuck in their heads and don't have anywhere to put their needs or their desires. So definitely that's something that I think we could chat about a little bit from my angle. And
wow, yes, that is very big. So giving people a voice, the voice for the voiceless, or how to encourage.
Right.
Actually, as Cornel West is always saying, lift every voice. In the Black national Black anthem of lift every voice and sing. So that having a voice. So thank you, Juman. And and Amirah.
Oh, thank you. Something that is very virtuous to me, and a moral value that I carry almost every day, is to serve the community. I believe community service gives you an opportunity to help those who are in need, and helps you understand that you're not here in this world alone. Other people are, for me, from my perspective, is that I'm here to serve others. That's my purpose on earth. And when you realize that, it humbles you, it grounds you, it stabilizes, and it also encourages others to do the same. And I think with a strong background in community service, youth are propelled to do good, not only for themselves and their families, but for their communities.
Well, thanks. Yes, that's so wonderful. And it's so much, of what you're doing yourself right now. And certainly when we think about the youth and youth needs, I think that's what we're doing. That's why we're trying to do it. So thank you for that. And Akram.
Yeah. Well, since we're framing this conversation in the context of Ramadan and Eid that's coming up, I guess I'll talk about the value of God consciousness, because that is the purpose and the intent of the fast, is to cultivate God consciousness. And I think, honestly, it could seem really abstract, like what is God consciousness? But, there's like a guide, and Islam offers us like kind of a framework to materialize that. And so one thing, like, how do you be God conscious? Well, faith, another word for faith in Arabic is the deen, which also means a debt. Like, we owe a debt to God. And I love that you open with gratitude. And that's part of that, like, God consciousness and paying off that debt is to be grateful, to serve humanity, and just to do our part, and to be good to ourselves, to be kind to ourselves, to uplift voices. So all of that, I think, is folded into this umbrella of God consciousness, which is what Ramadan is all about, what the hunger and the thirst and the, oh my God, these dates look so yummy, is all about.
Pretty soon, yes, it's always there. And, so thank you for bringing that. And I want to say, I feel like, I will mention truth and love, which, is often what I think of, because I think of Dr. King. I've quoted it so many times when he said, I believe that that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word. And I feel like, just as we're talking, we're all sharing our truths. And, even as you're talking about Ramadan, what you're experiencing and the ideas of Ramadan, sharing that truth. And then that love, which is that concern for the youth and their voices, or even the voice of the voiceless or the marginalized, the community service, that is really all of that about love. And so I also think, as you were bringing up about Ramadan, and we're doing the show just a slightly, really not much, but slightly earlier than usual because of that. Ramadan, I know when I really followed it, it was a year or two ago, and I didn't do it this year, but what a difference it made to me. I really felt, such it gave me so much. And I did a modified. I still drank water and coffee. That was pretty much. Oh, and then, I had one other drink I would drink that's it was sort of medicinal. It's cherry extract with some kind of fizzy water that is good for arthritis. But anyway, so I found that just even that modified following of it really gave me so much. And then we had a tremendously difficult year. That was 2020, and that was quite the year. Yeah. And I felt so much all that summer and everything. I couldn't have done the things that, I don't know how it would have been if I didn't have that to sort of prepare me. So one of the things we said we'll talk about is some of the strengths of Muslim youth. And so I want to start right out with that, is that example of that, or even that effort for that, what it takes in terms of strength and self-control, self-discipline, to fast. And even in, I can remember you, talking to kids at Camp Peace Prince when you were fasting and not drinking in the bristling heat, So luckily it's not, it's been weird anyway. Yeah, right. We won't get into that. But what do you say about that and other strengths that you see, that you've experienced and that you see in other Muslim youth?
One thing I definitely admired about the groups that I've been involved with, like the MSA. I know there's some youth groups through ISNF and a few others. And
MSA is?
The Muslim Student Association at UB,
right.
University of Buffalo.
Right.
They have a really great way of taking the younger kids under their wing. And I know it's very difficult for the, transitioning. Even if you've lived in America your whole life, it's very hard to assimilate and to integrate into a world where you're trying to keep your faith on your sleeve, but there's so many things fighting against you, whether that's temptation or just making you lose focus from the God consciousness. It's really nice to see that there's almost like these older sisters and brothers that are willing to talk to you and give you the guidance you need. Like I found that in Amirah, and I've seen Akram guiding all these younger kids. It's just beautiful to see that camaraderie. Battling these things. So.
Right. Oh, that is big. That is a big advantage in that fostering and that caring, mentoring.
Right.
Really.
Right. And I think what's important, and I'm going to piggyback on Juman's idea, is that creating a space for Muslim youth, even if there's no one there, knowing that space is available for you, like the MSA, going into the prayer room, knowing that it's there and it's available for you while you're on campus is so important. And maybe just a room, but it's serenity to that student who is going through a lot, transitioning, whether they moved away from home, they don't have family, they don't have friends available.
Right.
Knowing that those people in that room, when they are together, they share values, they share a faith, even though they may have different ethnicities, they may speak a different language. Just having that bond, that silent bond, you don't even know half of these people, but just seeing them and that they identify with your faith is so comforting to them. And it's so important, not only to those in college, but to those in, whether it's pre-K through high school or even beyond in the workplace. Having people of your faith is so important, or just a safe space for them to be in.
It's that beautiful combination of identity and community.
Right.
Yeah. Association, actually, of, that connecting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned like individual strengths, and I'll definitely give credit to that because it does take a lot of temperament to avoid eating and drinking. But I'll be the first to admit, like when that sun sets, I'm usually stuffing myself. I'm going to McDonald's at midnight.
Sure.
Like, right? 4 a.m.
Right, sure.
Stuffing as much
right.
So it's not always so idealistic in terms of like that self-control. I mean, even though it is there, and I do find that like just I'm as an extension of the fast, like I have to be more patient and I have to be more kinder to myself and others. But I think what everybody's talking about is community, and like that's what the greatest strength of that comes out of Ramadan and being a Muslim is, like community, especially in Ramadan. Like, I'm going to my masjid every day. We have this great youth group that Juman hinted at, the Seekers. We gather at Masjid An-Nur, and we do these late night programs. We're talking at 2 a.m., 40, 50 kids about like real world issues, about, amongst brothers, about toxic masculinity and about how to be how to just be a good person, who has those conversations amongst like teenagers, that's like people don't really talk about that. So I love the community aspect of Ramadan the most, and I think if there's any young Muslim youth out there, I've aged myself talking about the youth, and they're listening to this, that's one thing I hope you get to tap into, because it can be something that you do on your own, but you're only getting one drop of the experience.
Well, it's such a big, as you're saying, that. Well, back to association, that's one of the things we need. We're social, beings, very much so, as so many different animals are. But we are definitely social beings, and that being part of a group is so important. And I think that as you're saying it, there's a lot of strength. There's a tremendous amount of strength. I think about Malcolm X, and when he went, and that's another one too. So out of the 5 pillars of Islam, also making
Hajj.
Yeah, thank you, Hajj. I was almost there. I was almost there. But yeah, the Hajj to that obligation going on. Hajj changed his life.
Yes.
And really changed his optic. Not that there were so many things that he said before and he learned, but then he learned so much more. And back to it was about community, and it was about
I
the
just
human
wanna,
community.
if you don't mind,
please.
You mentioned it was an obligation for Hajj. It only is if you're capable and healthy, financially able to do so. So even with the pillars of faith, there's caveats. If you may.
Sure, yes, and even on I know for Ramadan, also
correct.
That if you're traveling or if you're ill or anything like that, there's nobody is asking, nobody is wanting.
It's not this constricting faith that is so strict that if you don't follow it a certain way, then you're deemed for, God forbid,
Right.
But everything, there's an easy route to take.
On that note, I do want to give a plug. Go
ahead. No, you can plug.
Everything is lining up. Everything just lines up. It's magical.
Yes.
There was a Native American sister. Her son, his name was Dakota. He converted to Islam, and he practiced the faith, and he became really immersed in it. He passed away at 25 years old, and he wanted to make the Hajj. That was one of his dreams and something he was saving up for. So his mother, she's not Muslim, but she wants to send someone off to Hajj. Hopefully someone who maybe does not have the means to pay for their own trip to go on Dakota's behalf and to get the reward. So since this is going out on the waves, you can reach out to me if you fit that profile and you've been wanting to make that journey and let people know that's out there.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
That is so beautiful. One of the things that was surprising to me, it really is, the pillars are so concrete and specific, So I mean, I sometimes I think I get lost in things that are very abstract. I tend to, all paths lead to the same goal, and a lot of stuff like that. Whereas it's very, very concrete. Yeah. So would you say is that also something that can be an advantage? That the suggestions or the possibilities are clear, are pretty well set out.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, what do you guys think?
I think so too. I think whenever there's a lot of ambiguity, people either interpret it completely wrong, or they deter because they don't know what the real guide is. So it may prevent someone from even wanting to look into it. But whenever it's set out for you, there's such ease that comes with it. And then with sense of community, there's mentors that, don't get me wrong, we all question things.
Oh, sure.
Or we find ourselves in situations where we're like, we don't know what to do because that's just life.
Right.
But with mentors and friends that share your background, share your values, they're able, and that's the sense of community and the safe spaces that are important to the Muslim youth. And especially whenever you're, you walk out into the world and you have society in your face that are like bombarding you, whether it's, even if you're in your own home, social media is in your face.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Everywhere you go, there's something being channeled to you. And sometimes you don't know where to go or how to operate. But whenever there are definitive things in your life, family is a core value in the Muslim faith. And again, this goes beyond cultures. There's Muslims from all over the world. All over the world. There's no one cultural identity.
Right.
But faith is the bond. And I think with it being definitive, it is much easier to practice.
So let's move a little bit. We've been talking about particular advantages or strengths. Let's talk about some of the challenges and difficulties that come up. And I want to say that, just bring up the obvious elephant in the room of Islamophobia that seems to, possibly it's been reduced a little bit for a while there. It was really, very
It was politicized. It was highly politicized.
It was also but it was only feeding that fire too. So there was ignorance, there was manipulation and hate mongering that came in. I mean, both of those things were the critical two elements that just were, causing this real challenge to people.
If I may, I think as far as our experiences go, I mean, I could speak from growing up in Lackawanna, where there was a huge population of Arab American Muslims.
Right.
The same can't be said for someone in Kansas or Wyoming. So their experience may have been completely different, especially during 9/11 and during the wars.
Right.
I know with where Akram and Juman live, there's a community of Muslims, and they've been. Both of their families have been invested in that community and have earned a reputation of being good people, and they weren't just strangers that appeared overnight. So they already had this sense of community even outside of the Muslim community.
Right.
But the same can't be said for that, that one little girl that wears a hijab in a school of no other Muslims.
Right.
So
right.
We were blessed to be, to grow up in the communities that we grew up in.
Right. Now, you said Arabic.
Arab American Muslim.
Arab American.
And I only specify.
Yemeni?
Correct. And Lackawanna.
In Lackawanna. More.
And I just I label it that way because that is the true demographic of when I was growing up. I didn't grow up amongst other Muslims of other ethnicities. It was predominantly, if not all, Yemeni. So. Today, the face of Islam is changing. There's many Western African, Eastern Africans.
Right.
There's Bengali and as well as Pakistani within Lackawanna, which was predominantly just Yemeni.
Right.
So the cultures differ, but the faith is the same.
Right. But I would just say, because we've done, and I mean, there's so much going on in Yemen every day.
Right.
And so there's plenty, and we won't go too far in that direction because that could be, that certainly is a whole show over and over again.
Correct.
And just so desperately needed a War Powers Act. But we won't get into that right now. But relief, certainly. And it was just, it's because, so close, but yet so far,
You're right.
But anyway, so what do each of you think in terms of challenges and things that
I think depending
to
on
work on,
like the way that Amirah outlined it, if you are in even certain school districts that have a lower, I guess, percentage of people of color or people of your faith. I didn't know too many hijabis at my high school, and so obviously on first glance I do not wear the hijab. I'm a Muslim American, so you wouldn't exactly treat me differently, but then as soon as the hijab is on, sometimes things can be different. I remember going to Lafayette High School on Saturday mornings, and I would have my hijab on, just go about my errands, stop by Tim Hortons, and sometimes you do notice getting like a second glance, so I can't really speak on behalf of those who have to deal with, face the world as a visibly Muslim person. So I've definitely seen both sides of it. But what I do find is really beautiful is when I do bump into someone new to my school, or I see someone on a university campus that in my class that maybe looks a little shy or nervous, and we're doing a group activity. If you just say something like "Salam alaikum," that's simply indicating that unspoken bond.
Right.
And I think that's what's really beautiful. But also, we're talking about disadvantages, or I guess
challenges. What's challenging about it, and
I guess just by luck of the draw, if you are in a place that has people who look like you and relate to you, then you may have to face more bullying or isolation, and surrounding the value that I mentioned earlier, psychological needs, feeling connected and feeling grounded and safe in an area, whatever area of life you're in, is harder for somebody who is visibly Muslim. Especially the youth, when you're building your identity.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Islamophobia it's interesting to talk about it, and I don't know, I don't want to sound like insensitive especially to people who've experienced real violence as a result of Islamophobia.
Right.
There were 3 that were killed. I forget their names, but you can look it up. It was in
Chapel Hill.
Yes, Chapel Hill. Chapel Hill.
My sister lives in Chapel Hill, just by the way.
So there's real violence that results from Islamophobia that's caused harm to our communities. However, on the whole, I think in the big picture, when you talk about like what's affecting our population, I think Islamophobia does more harm to the Islamophobe than it does to us.
I agree.
Edward Said, he talks about in his book Orientalism the creation of the idea of the Orient and Islamophobia, and how it's essentially a tool to justify conflict and war and occupation, and who's suffering as a result of our bloated military budgets. It's the everyday American. It's the fact we don't have health care and education and all of these, and our infrastructure is in a poor shape. And I saw this post on Facebook the other day. It was a screenshot of a conversation. And somebody was looking for a power washing quote, and the guy responds, he's like, "Hi, my name is Muhammad. I'd be happy to help you with a power wash quote." The dude responds, "Are you Muslim?" He says, "Yes, I am." Smiley face. The guy says, "Forget the estimate." And I'm like thinking and I started scrolling through his business page, like, this guy could really power wash. He looks like he does a good job. So like, you lost like a potentially good business relationship there. I mean, Islamophobia only keeps you from like meeting interesting people, trying good food, it really does. But for the Muslim youth in particular, I think the challenges are more internal. It's like this idea of being caught between worlds. It's like this, how do I show up as a Muslim? How do I show up as an American? How do I, especially I think for immigrants, it's not so much the faith, the cultural, navigating the culture and like being really at peace with yourself in this like multicultural society, and I think that's probably a little bit more challenging, the internal work.
Right.
Absolutely.
And if I have to go in on this, kids that are in the ages of between 7 and maybe 19, maybe even beyond 19, they just want to be cool. They want to be cool amongst their peers. They want to be cool in front of the girls. They want to be cool in front of the boys. Whatever it is, they want to be cool and they want to be accepted. Not just be known as this is a good kid with good academics. So in a culture, and when I say in a culture, I mean the American culture, where sex, drugs, and alcohol make you the coolest kid on the block. This is what Muslim kids are facing day to day. And those are the vices of man. And they are susceptible to those pressures. And it is so frustrating and it's so hard for parents to raise kids that are, well-rounded, excelling in academics, providing them food and shelter and everything they need, all the tools they need to excel in college and excel in elementary and high school. And then once they leave the door, they're susceptible to the sex, drugs, and alcohol issues. And those are huge. Those are huge challenges, if you may. I know that's how that's what we labeled it as. And Islamophobia is that's not my concern when I'm walking out the door. Whenever my nieces and nephews are in school, I'm worried about who's trying to push them pills, who's trying to push them some kind of drug. Those are the things, because they're in a world where all of that exists.
Right.
We don't live in a bubble.
No, right.
We don't want them to be sheltered to the point where they're not interacting and engaging with their friends after school. Then at the end of the year there's prom, and you want kids want to participate, but then American culturally, there's things that are done after prom, and those things and that's why I say creating safe spaces.
Yes.
That's the most important thing, because when those spaces are created, you're taking that child out of those possibilities and providing, taking your kids and their friends to the movies. I appreciate those parents who do group events with other kids, because they all have the same traditions and the same values. So you trust that this parent isn't going to drink and drive with your child.
Mm-hmm.
You trust that when they go to the house, boys and girls will be in separate spaces. Mm-hmm. So those things are not really discussed because they're frowned upon by American society.
Mm.
Well, one thing I'd say is I don't think that's just for Muslim youth.
Absolutely.
So if you had seen, the number of shows that we've done quite recently about the challenges to youth, that is the challenge for all the parents.
Correct.
That is the challenge with all the youth.
That
is that there are values and first of all, sometimes I think that the United States is quite schizophrenic. So or hypocritical. There's a certain amount of that too.
And I believe you mean by society, correct?
About society,
right?
Society, and when we start getting into the government, then we're going into yet another layer. But let's just keep it on the society. So we want to think, all people are created equal, and that we really believe in that, and we're really doing that. But we do have the 13th Amendment, which still legalizes slavery for people, and then we do have a criminal justice system which is completely, detrimental, overall. So it doesn't mean that there are easy answers, but that's not one of them, the way it's happening for sure. But anyway, the alcohol or different, you say sex, drugs, and I wouldn't, rock and roll, hey, no problem there. No, there's nothing.
Standard of problems we have today.
Right. We wouldn't really count that one in. Yeah. But, those challenges, and especially guns, and especially violence, or especially, there's all kinds of, and and not to mention one of the ones I think the worst one is, take care of number one, is there's a certain level of distrust that has started to be very prevalent in society, that we've lost a lot of trust, and why, I don't even know. There's all kinds of reasons. I always think of the Bowling for Columbine was done about the shootings. This really the beginning of school shootings,
right.
And one of the things that they really emphasized in that movie, which was so masterfully done by Michael Moore, was the level of violence. First of all, that is endemic in the American culture that has been with us right along. And the other thing is the sort of the fear mongering that the media does to try and get people to listen, say what you need to know about killer bees, and this kind of thing, So those are all things that that every family has to deal with. So those are challenges for all of our youth.
Yeah. Yeah, Amirah, I appreciate you bringing that up, like always keeping it real. Those are common challenges, shared challenges. And it's interesting because, like, Islam, theoretically, if you're a Muslim, you should be safeguarded from that. But when you are in high school and going into college, oftentimes it's that tug of war between, am I going to practice my faith, which emphasizes sobriety, emphasizes chastity and family values, all that stuff, which oftentimes actually, ironically, is kind of frowned upon in nowadays. It's
back to what you said about cool, being cool.
It's
and it follows you to the workplace, because after work, there's happy hour.
Right.
And there's millions of professional Muslims that work in all areas of industry.
Sure.
And it is common for there to be a happy hour. And, I'll participate to an extent if it's a restaurant, not blatantly bar, you know.
Right.
But we joke about it. I say I'll always be your DD. Always.
Right.
And I encourage all my coworkers.
Has anyone ever taken you up on that?
Oh,
I did do the driving to Ellicottville when my coworkers were like, "We want to do wine tasting." I said, well, "I'm driving then."
Right.
So,
Start a business.
Right.
Sending bills.
so
No, but you made like once? No, I don't believe that.
no, it wasn't many. There weren't many
wasn't
times
many
because I
times.
don't.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
participate in a lot of those
No,
events,
right,
but
right.
but I do go to like the Christmas parties at work and stuff
Right,
because
sure.
I'm still part of that
Right.
camaraderie,
Right.
But I and some choose not to. That are, of Muslim faith. We're not a monolith. That's what I also
Right.
want it to be known.
Absolutely.
That not everybody is going to practice and live their life exactly the same.
Right.
So if I'm here as an employee and I do certain things a certain way, and then the next week Juman is introduced to our, as a staff member, don't compare me and Juman.
Yeah.
Right.
Don't say, well, Amirah does this. Why don't you? That's
Right.
that's very unfair, and it
Right.
happens more than I'd like to
Yeah.
admit. A lot.
Sure.
And we're constantly being pitted against each other about how we and it's sad because I'm the only Muslim they know.
Well, that was
So
the other one
I'm
that's
the
going to
poster
come.
child,
Right.
Prototype.
or you are, or you know what I mean. So now
Right.
there's this anomaly because there's more than 2 Muslims in the office.
How do we do
Right.
this?
Yeah. So wait a minute, you know what I mean?
You do this, but you do that.
Right. Who know?
Yeah,
Who would
right.
have knew?
Yeah.
So things like that. We're not a monolith. We
No,
are,
right.
and we are. I could speak for myself and my family. Extremely patriotic. My dad chose to stay and to live in the U.S. and to stay after he retired. He could have retired anywhere in the world. But this
From
is,
what? What was he doing?
he was a steel worker at Bethlehem Steel.
Oh, really?
Yep. Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yep. And he said there was no place better in the world than the United States because he's experienced the hard life it was back home. And he was able to raise his family here and family members in Yemen. And he was able to provide very well, and you can't do that as an immigrant, not speaking the language and being an orphan. He was orphaned by the age, I believe, of 8 years old.
Wow.
So he came to the U.S., scratch, nothing, and started himself. And chose to stay in Lackawanna even after the steel plant closed, and because the sense of community that they created, the pioneers back then
Right.
created a community,
Right.
and it's thriving. It's probably, oh my God, it's exponentially increased over the past 50 years.
Sure.
And that's it. It always boils down to community and God consciousness. Always.
Right.
I definitely see that there's this common thread of like a safe haven, feeling like you belong, feeling like even if there's no other Muslims around, something really beautiful that I've experienced is when my coworkers find out that I'm Muslim, just something in conversation, I have to take a day off from work. They're like, oh, what are you doing? What are you celebrating? And, you start to open up that communication, that line of communication. They start to ask more questions, and oftentimes it's just from a place of curiosity. Sometimes the questions are a little funky, but as long as it comes from a good place.
They are funny though, right?
Yeah, it always
Right,
comes from a good
sure.
place and a genuine place of
Right.
curiosity. And I've loved that. Let's say I tell a coworker I don't drink, and they tell me, oh, I have this sort of issue. I also can't drink. I'm on these medications, and so when we go to these events, these work-related events, then you don't have to participate, and there's always somebody there that you can feel comfortable being yourself and not having to fit into these boxes.
Right.
And so that safe haven, whether that's an organization, a group, or just one person that you can talk to and be like, hey, I'm not super okay with this. I got to get going, or, I can't participate. So feeling like
And they're
you
getting
belong.
better.
Yeah,
They
absolutely.
are. Yep. Yeah.
Sometimes they know more than I do. Sometimes I've had friends that are more informed on current, like Muslim-related news or anything like that than I am. So the world's changing.
But it's true. They do adopt and they kind of schedule things around your lifestyle too. They do, and I think that's part of their trust with you, and the bond that they built with you. And they wouldn't ask you funky questions if they didn't like and trust you.
Right.
And that's
Sure.
what I learned. That's
the
what I
comfort.
learned. It's comfortable. It's
Right.
Some people have never met and spoke with a Muslim before.
Right.
Right.
So we're kind of like this apparition that came to life, and they're like, oh my God, now I can ask you everything I ever wondered.
Right.
You know? And I tell them all the time, I'm an open book. I'd rather you get it from me, even if I don't have the answers, than you surfing the net trying to find it out, or to find some bogus translation of what my faith is. So and at the end of the day, we're all striving for the same things. We all work the 9 to 5. Right. There's nothing that separates us to a point where we can't identify or recognize each other.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I imagine that you find in those conversations, a lot of times people will find as many or more similarities than differences, right? Similarities. For example, now fasting. So we were just talking about Ramadan and fasting, but then, actually it has mostly coincided with Lent this year, which is not as strenuous, not as strenuous, although it could be if the person decides to give up enough or do enough fasting that it could be.
There was a weekend in April. It was like Passover, Ramadan, Easter, Coachella. all of the religions.
Right.
All the tribes together.
Oh, and Coachella, the religion. All the religions. Oh, even that one.
Yeah.
But actually also I think of the tent of Abraham and the fact that, so many similarities. First of all, in all the religions, I've always found that, and differences, similarities and differences, even within the different religions, there are similarities and differences, right?
Correct.
So there's different sects or different ways of practicing or denominations. But also that if we looked at the Abrahamic or Abrahamic religions, that Judaism and Christianity and Islam do have the creation story is virtually the same. They're virtually built on each other or with each other, with a lot of...
Some would refer to it as the trilogy.
Right.
Right.
Yep. And of course, Jesus being in Islam, right? A prophet.
Yes, very prominent as well. Ironically, he's mentioned more in the Quran than the Prophet Muhammad is.
Yeah.
Really? Yes. And I've met more boys named Isa in my lifetime than I have Christian kids named Jesus. So, and these are Muslim boys with the name Isa. Yep.
That's something I really love about Western New York specifically, because you look at all these bridge building initiatives and you just see the way that specifically Buffalo can bring resources and people together to have these conversations. Like you have your Understanding Islam series that the Muslim Public Affairs Council does. And then you have, the Tent of Abraham. Everyone's sharing a meal under one roof and sharing experiences, laughs, stories. And I just think that's critical to somebody new entering a community, no matter where they come from, especially when we're seeing the influxes of refugees, evacuees. They don't know where to go, so we rely on the leadership, the people who are older, to take these new people in, whether young or old, to help them integrate into society and feel like they have a safe haven here.
Right. And people have faith. That's, sort of, and back to even people have faith, people have no faith. Still, so many, just if our, for agnostic or even atheists, a lot of the same pillars of behavior or of leading a good life are the same. I think of Cornel West talks about moral integrity and universal solidarity. It's sort of, if we all had both of those things, where would we be? That would really be what we need. And so that's very much of humanism. Even though he's a devout Christian, he's a what is he in the way he puts it, but anyway, he's very Christian from Shiloh, first Shiloh, etc. So there are so many different ways of practicing, but those matters of moral integrity are really so key to how do we operate in the world.
Yeah, it's as a Muslim, we like to think of Islam as the universal truth. And I often, as I read through the Quran, I sometimes realize that the way God introduces Islam isn't as a like a category. It's a practice. Like people who submit to God, basically a higher power, who believe, who do good deeds, who take care of the needy, who look after orphans. Like that's someone who submits, you know, to the natural order of creation. So it's like I even wonder, and like this may be, you know, a bit controversial to talk about, but like I wonder if this category Islam was created after the fact, whereas God was speaking to humanity and just asking human beings to submit to God and to do good deeds, you know. So that's why you see the theme echoed throughout all religions.
See, to me, it all looks so similar, and you know, and I sometimes I have to watch myself, because just because it all looks similar to me doesn't mean it looks similar to other people. But the basics, either the basic principles are so much the same, or even some of the ways that, as you're describing it, you know, it made me think of, you know, what I just said as in my little sort of, what do I want to say, appreciation of a Gnoño, of an indigenous Gnoño, which is about, you know, that, you know, and goes through all the elements saying that, you know, should be, you know, behaving as originally instructed so that life can continue in this creation is one of the things, you know, that gets repeated over and over again. That is basically the same thing that you're saying, or in Christianity or Judaism, really, that, you know, thy will be done kind of thing, which is back to surrender or submitting, submission.
Absolutely. God didn't send messengers to invent something new. They were always sent as reminders to humanity, the original truth. So, but yeah, I'm no Muslim scholar. I just, you know, I just been hearing the Quran every night for the past month. So this charge will last for a little bit, and then I'll need next Ramadan.
It's all about refueling.
Yeah.
Yep. That's part of. I mean, it's part of the journey, and I think that especially like on the topic of youth, kids innately have these ideas of wanting to be safe and wanting to be kind and to be generous, or at least from my end of it, I see that kids have it all figured out, and then when you become an adult, you forget those things. And in Islam, there's a concept of like the material world, or you know, possessions. It's called the Dunya. And as soon as you're an adult, that's when you really have a sober view of the Dunya, the world. And
say that word again.
Dunya.
Dunya?
Yeah. So it's when you become an adult and you have all these temptations, possessions, money, power hanging over your head, it kind of steers you in the wrong direction. And I feel as if when you're young, you're actually much wiser than a lot of adults because you have those natural, the golden rules within
polluted.
You.
Oh, yes. As because originally instructed means to me, it's in there.
Right.
Because we feel it, you know, and I've seen it. I've seen it when I've talked with people about violence, nonviolence. I can talk with, you know, when you were just talking, you know, I so much on the same page about the war machine and how it costs in every way. And just violence begetting violence. So, you know, I mean, we can go into that a lot more deeply, but just the basic thing, people understand it in a very deep level, how much it doesn't help. You know, and it may be or seem that at certain times there's no other solution. I like it when they say, you know, there is no violent solution. But in any case, you know, a lot of the truths that they're you know, they're in us already. They're in our heart to care for each other. And, you know, when they say, you know, you've heard where they say, you know, everything I needed to know I learned in kindergarten, right? Because they're those basic things. Right. They're very basic. You know, sharing, you know, loving, you know, being honest, being truthful, you know, those things. And listening.
It's amazing how easily children access these truths. Like, and it's part of the things that kind of like affirms my faith is like, you don't need to like explain really twice to a child that there's a God and prayer is important and taking care of each other is important. Like, I'm at the masjid and we're doing babysitting and like, I got 4 years old who'll stand in prayer and like, some of them are gonna like look around and run around, but like they get it, like they innately get it. So it's like, that to me is like, wow, there's something there. I wanted to field a question to my Muslim sisters here. I wonder, do you ever feel like in Ramadan in particular, like down on yourself for not being able to be as productive as like you can be like throughout the year, just not having the same energy, maybe not getting through your to-do list, or maybe you're just superheroes and doing it all?
No, I always framed Ramadan as being like the chill part of the year. And even though I'm not as productive, sometimes brain fog kicks in. But I have to tell you, there's a sense of serenity that I feel during Ramadan that I don't feel before or after it. It kind of is like a light switch on and off. And I had this conversation with my nephew the night before. He goes, you know what, he goes, because he's coming of age. He's 27 years old, and he's a father now. And he has his own home, and we never really had deep conversations before this period. And I think this is the first Ramadan that struck a chord with him. And he goes, I'm going to miss Ramadan. I'm actually going to miss Ramadan this year because I feel so secure. He goes, even though the outside world is still going about its business like it always did, I feel it in me that I just feel so calm. And I know you had mentioned earlier in the conversation about that with you, and you happened to experience it during COVID, correct? It was 2020?
Well, that was why it was easy for me, because honestly, I didn't dare try. I wanted to do it every year, but first of all, and I didn't, I told you, I couldn't do the no water.
Well,
I couldn't even do that. I just couldn't even try.
Ironically.
But it did, and it was because of COVID, because I didn't have to drive, I didn't have to go anywhere. I thought, okay,
and
this is the year I'm going to do it.
Do you know all the conversations that I had with people, because we would speak of Ramadan coming up or it just passing, and they would say, you know what, Ramadan was the best time for me? During COVID. They said this is the first time that they've actually experienced it with their family unit together. They said they didn't have the hustle and bustle of, picking up, dropping off, going to work, going to school.
That's driving.
They said that this was the first time that they actually experienced it with such devout, innate, devout peace.
Right.
And it's so true. The world was scary as it was during that time. Ramadan brought such great peace.
For me, Ramadan was like that great healer, like coming out of, because March, we had the first Ramadan, and I want to say that was a little bit difficult for me mentally, psychologically. But that second Ramadan, 2021, we were still in the pandemic.
Right.
But for me, that was like the beginning of like, all right, you went through this experience, this scary year, and now come to God and start to like process it. Do you have any thoughts on the whole productivity thing?
Yeah, so I was like during the first wave, I guess we can call it, that's when I had to start working in the doctor's offices to get patient care experience. So it was really scary. But then I was like, all right, now I'm kind of isolating myself in my room, and I mean, obviously I'm no perfect Muslim, and I'm, in my own sort of pathway, but that time I felt like, because I wanted to stay a little bit separate from my family to like not get them sick and not be roaming around the house when I'm in a doctor's office. When I was in that room, I felt like I wanted to just pray every single prayer. Like there was nothing else to do. And at some point it just became automatic. And we sometimes can think of it as like a burden when you're younger, and you're like, oh, I gotta. It's like they're doing their chores. But then you eventually, when you become an adult and you have a specific internal purpose that you feel, or this internal connection to your faith, and you have the light bulb moment. Then that's what COVID was for me. That when I was in that room is when I had my. My full circle moment, I guess.
I have to tell you that we are coming up on the end of the show. We're not quite there yet, but we have about 5 minutes to really just say, so what is sort of a last, thoughts that you want to share, how people can either get more involved in whatever that means in this context. That's usually what we're talking about. So, how could they help Muslim youth, or how can people just learn more? If they, so what would you like to leave people with is really, I guess, more my question. What are some of the main things you want people to think of?
I have 2 quick points. One is on the productivity thing. Y'all are way ahead of me. Because I feel like I just had this wake-up call this Ramadan, which probably should have had a while ago. I was getting down on myself because I'm basically working 2 jobs now. One's at Buffalo Toronto Public Media. The other is just trying to advance my own productions. So I was getting really down on myself. I mean, my job was gracious enough to let me start work early at 7 and then clock out early at 3, so that I can, rest. But my Dunya-oriented mind was like, great, I'm going to have like 5 hours to bang out some more work for myself. I'm dead. I didn't have the energy. And I was first really down, but then I realized, like, is this what I was made for? Was I made just to work? Was I made just to produce? Was I made just to, or can I just be and like read and relax and just meditate and, and that's living. So, I feel like we live in a very capitalist society. We measure our worth by what we create, our income, but that's not your worth. Second, I think the biggest help to the Muslim community in Ramadan and Eid is probably educators, teachers. I think they form us. They really do. I didn't have this growing up, so maybe this generation can have like teachers that like, just like they talk about Christmas, just like they talk about Hanukkah, they can talk about Ramadan and Eid. Maybe do a little Eid day. Maybe do a little like, I don't know, gold coin thing because we give kids money during Eid and like talk about fast and like eat a day, share something. If teachers in the public school can raise that awareness, like that would make the next generation like a lot better off. Yeah,
so it starts on May 1st, right?
Second. Eid, depending on the moon.
Oh, depends on the moon, right.
That's another conundrum that we
Right.
I'm moon sight through and through. For me, it's like staying up late waiting for that.
But then when you're asking for a day off of work, you're like, my holidays, maybe Sunday, maybe Monday. I'll let you know Saturday night.
Right.
Like if I live then I'm not coming in tomorrow. You'll let me know. Moon? What?
Yeah.
Okay.
But yes, May 1st, May 2nd will be Eid day. Most likely that Monday.
Wonderful. Shukran.
Afwa.
So,
I guess I'll frame it with the perspective from the youth, youth perspective. I guess.
Yes.
The kids in school and your the peers of your children, because this message is for non-Muslims. The kids that your children are friends with are going through the same things. They're looking into scholarships. They're on soccer and baseball teams, and they're still doing their thing, absent of what their faith is. At the end of the day, they're still youth that are susceptible to the societal pressures, just like your kid is, and feel free to speak with their parents, talk to the parents. And we don't have to we're not like aliens that have this whole separate outlook on life. It's pretty much the same. Our faith is a bit different, and I say that, and I emphasize a bit different. And then culturally, we may eat different foods, but we still like burgers.
Right. I don't know. I want to vouch for your food. Let me tell you.
No, trust me.
No, that's where the good food is.
Go out on Eid, and you'll see tables full.
IHOP.
Everything.
IHOP is the Eid tradition.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
At your house, right? That's a Shibly. Oh, you guys too? I know that's their thing.
Yep. Honestly, IHOP should start doing Eid specials because the amount of business we pump up.
Oh, not only that, but grocery stores during Ramadan should have went back to the 24 hours.
And so now quickly to you, because we really are about to close out.
Just a couple 2 points, but having Muslim neighbors is great because they have amazing desserts. They'll drop off to you.
They do.
And just asking more questions to the youth, asking more questions, having those conversations.
100%.
I could not be more grateful to all of you coming in, especially while you're fasting during Ramadan, and when you have that special focus, that really God-centered focus. So we are very grateful for you sharing so much during Ramadan, sharing so much all the time, and being wonderful human beings, not human doings. And anyway, we are so great. So together, thank you so much. Together we've been talking peace, and together we are talking peace in truth and love.
Salam.
Thank you so much. That is that. Space. That was that. Yes.
I missed you guys.
also on the camera. Watch what you say.
Oh yeah, hot mic. It is still going.
Yes.
This is
Yes.
not time.
Everybody take a day home. I will run.
Yes. Yeah. No, you have to run. I know
Yes.
you have to run. But
I do
take some dates with. You should take dates.
Oh, we got plenty in my house.
No, but
You
on your
mentioned
way,
Dakota?
you want to break it, or
Yes.
you don't want to
World
break
that
it
we
on the
live
way.
in?
That's okay.
I
I
do
have
what-
water
you do
sitting
whatever
in my
you do.
car.
Is that in
and-
Atlanta? Was
Yes.
it? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
You see-